The first time Kimberly saw Brent swagger into the bullpen with his $900 loafers and a PowerPoint full of buzzwords, she knew the company was officially screwed. Not in a blaze of glory bankruptcy way, no. This was the slow, stupid death of a place that used to take pride in doing things right. Kimberly had been there for 16 years. Her spreadsheets were cleaner than the CFO's conscience and twice as reliable. Every invoice, every shipping manifest, every gas station receipt that ran through that company passed under her magnifying glass. And now, this human TED talk and hair gel was telling everyone they needed to think more vertically. She didn't say anything that first week. She just watched. She watched as Brent fired the night janitor for not fitting the brand image. She watched him install a neon sign that said disrupt or die in the break room, where the coffee machine still groaned like it was powered by coal. Most of all, she watched the numbers. Fuel costs, for example. For 3 quarters running, Kimberly had flagged a mild but consistent rounding error in the invoices coming out of the Phoenix hub. It wasn't massive, just a few $100s a week, but always in the company's favor, never the vendors. When she brought it up during the last audit cycle, the old CFO had nodded, thanked her, and actually corrected the ledger. Brent's new guy, though. He chuckled and called it operational lubrication. Now before we go further, quick favor. See, apparently 97% of y'all watching these stories haven't subscribed. I'm trying to hit my first 10,000 subscribers ever, so if you're enjoying this and want more tales of quiet office vengeance and poetic justice, go ahead and smash that subscribe button. It's free, unlike Brent's PR consultant. Anyway, Kimberly's desk sat at the end of the 3rd floor, tucked behind a filing cabinet fortress she'd built for herself over the years. It wasn't fancy, but it was hers, one of those low-profile cubicles where the silence became sacred. Her keyboard had a worn-down enter key from years of exporting truth into Excel cells. On this particular Thursday morning, she was sipping her lukewarm tea, cross-referencing warehouse receipts when she noticed it again. The fuel variance was up to $614 this month. Not flagged, not corrected, just padded. Funny how the math always favors the optimists, she muttered. 2 cubicles down, Tara from marketing was loudly explaining to someone over Zoom how the company was vibing into a new fiscal frontier. Kimberly gritted her teeth and typed faster. She'd seen this before. Hype men come in, numbers go sideways, and eventually someone ends up testifying in front of a congressional subcommittee. At the weekly ops meeting, Brent sauntered in with a stupid ceramic mug that said data is sexy. He flipped open his tablet and projected a graph that might as well have been drawn with crayons: skyrocketing growth, flawless efficiency, customer satisfaction at 93%. Kimberly stared at the curve and knew it was fiction. Any questions? Brent asked, flashing the teeth of someone who's never had to worry about Cobra insurance. She cleared her throat. Just curious where you source those figures. They don't match what's in the core ERP. Oh, we layered in some sentiment analysis from the support tickets, Brent replied, waving her off. Adjusted for trajectory. Trajectory doesn't pay diesel, she said flatly. The room went quiet. Brent chuckled like she was a charming inconvenience. The meeting ended early. She got no answers. Back at her desk, she opened her master fuel log and stared at the cells. For a moment, she hovered over the flag discrepancy button she'd created years ago in her custom review tool. Then she hit it twice. Because if the truth made her too negative, then she'd damn well document every crumb of reality until the day they kicked her out. Maybe longer. Brent's office looked like the inside of a tech startup that died of aesthetic overdose. Concrete wall with one artfully cracked slab, 2 leather chairs that had never hosted an ass with job security, and a whiteboard filled with arrows pointing to words like synergy and agility. Kimberly stood at the door clutching her quarterly report like a schoolteacher forced to explain math to a TikTok influencer. Kimberly, come in, Brent said with that salesman's smile that made you check your pockets afterward. He gestured at the chair across from his glass desk, where her report lay, massacred in red ink like a crime scene. She sat down slowly, taking in the dramatic lack of paperweights, family photos, or any item that implied permanence. Brent leaned forward, tapping her report like he was about to read her palm. So I went over your projections. Very thorough. Very, he paused to find the most insulting compliment. Realistic. But we're not trying to survive, Kimberly. We're trying to thrive. She folded her hands in her lap. The numbers are accurate. We've got backlogs in Arizona, warehousing inefficiencies in Boise, and our fuel overhead is 11% higher than Q2 last year. That's not thriving. He let out a short laugh, the kind that only makes noise in the throat. That's one version of the truth. What I need is a version that supports our forward momentum. You get what I'm saying? No, she said plainly. Brent slid the report toward her like he was handing over a napkin covered in ketchup. You've got to frame it more optimistically. Instead of saying we're behind on shipments, say we're transitioning through a growth bottleneck. Instead of citing increased costs, emphasize strategic fuel partnerships in progress. You're too focused on the whole, not the donut. She blinked. You want me to lie? I want you to be a team player, he replied, with the oily confidence of a man who inherited both title and teeth. This company's image is half the battle, and your tone, it's uninspiring. Your report reads like a eulogy. She picked up the pages, flipped to the section on regional losses, and tapped it. This is data, not fiction. You hired me to analyze logistics, not spin bedtime stories for investors. He leaned back, smile evaporated. We're looking for people who see the donut, not the hole. You're just too honest about the wrong things. That's when she knew, not guessed. Knew. She stood up, smoothed her skirt, and gave a single nod. He waved at the door like he was swatting a mosquito. We'll process your severance package. HR will be in touch. By the time she got back to her desk, a company-wide email had already gone out announcing a departmental reorientation and thanking Kimberly for her service during a time of transition. Her inbox was being quietly archived before her eyes. A junior associate she'd trained last spring couldn't even look at her. The printer jammed when she tried to run her personal tax forms. Of course it did. In her drawer was a ceramic mug that read, "Don't confuse my quiet with weakness." She threw it into the cardboard box without padding. 38 minutes. That's how long it took her to pack 16 years of integrity into a banker's box, walk through a hallway of lowered eyes, and step into the parking lot where her decade-old Honda Civic waited like a loyal dog in hospice. She sat in the car with her box in her lap. The sun was too bright, and the dashboard smelled like lemon cleaner and betrayal. That's when it hit her, not sadness, not shock. Rage. The kind that settles low and quiet, like a pilot light waiting for gas. The days bled together in the gray soup of late afternoon light, filtering through the dusty blinds of Kimberly's apartment. She hadn't intended to fall into a routine, but joblessness had a way of choreographing its own ballet. Coffee at 9, job board doomscroll at 10, existential dread around 1, then a matinee showing of old true crime documentaries while she debated whether heating a can of soup counted as dinner or a cry for help. Her living room doubled as her office now, which was generous considering the desk was a folding table and her chair used to be part of a patio set. She'd lined up the usual suspects: LinkedIn, Indeed, Glassdoor, and a private spreadsheet she called places I'm too old to work at. It was color-coded. The red rows were ones that didn't respond. Orange were the thanks, but no thanks replies written in that HR dialect, where "we'll keep your resume on file" meant we deleted your email before finishing it. Kimberly had 22 years of experience and a minor degree in accounting that, once upon a time, got her in the door with confidence. Now it got her ghosted by software that filtered out resumes that didn't include phrases like agile, Scrum certified, or willing to relocate for exposure. Her most promising lead was a third-party logistics firm that offered dynamic culture compensation. Translation: free la croix and burnout. Her severance, if you could call 4 weeks of paycheck crumbs a package, had covered rent, groceries, and her car insurance. There wasn't much left. She'd stopped running the A/C. She unplugged her toaster. She learned that reheating coffee in the microwave twice was the max before it started to taste like hot paper towel. And then came that night. She was curled up on her faux leather couch that made fart noises every time she shifted, scrolling through her old company's social media like she was poking a bruise. Their Instagram was full of stock photos pretending to be real moments. Warehouse workers high-fiving in perfect lighting. A boardroom filled with multi-ethnic smiles, none of which she'd ever seen in real life. Then she saw the post. A link to Midwest Visionaries Quarterly. The headline hit like a belt buckle to the teeth. Brent Asher. The bold mind rewiring logistics for the 21st century. She stared at it for a full minute before clicking. There he was, Brent, sitting in a high-backed leather chair, looking like a divorced podcast host with dreams of becoming a lifestyle brand. The article was pure fluff. He talked about streamlining inefficiencies through intuitive leadership and reframing KPIs around human-first data. Kimberly barked a joyless laugh. Human-first data? The man couldn't locate the Arizona invoice server if you stapled the IP address to his forehead. The photo caption read, "Asher's hands-on approach is revolutionizing transparency in logistics." She shut her laptop so hard it made the cat jump off the couch. The rage was acid behind her eyes, but the helplessness was worse. She could see the lies. She could prove them. And yet here she was, eating rice with mustard for dinner because her checking account had $73.82 in it, and she didn't want to break a 20. No one called. No one checked in. Her phone stayed silent except for robocalls offering low-interest business loans to companies she no longer worked for. She lay in bed that night staring at the cracked ceiling. She wasn't mad she got fired. She was mad because they erased her. Like she was a bump in the road for the Brent parade. Just a necessary sacrifice so the visionary could make his spreadsheet smile for investors. The worst part? They were going to get away with it. Unless it started with the spinning beach ball of death. Kimberly's ancient MacBook had been wheezing for days, refusing to open even simple PDFs without protesting like an arthritic dog. She'd finally had enough and decided to clean house, delete duplicates, clear the downloads folder that had become a graveyard of tax forms and takeout menus, maybe even dig into that mysterious system other eating up half her hard drive. She didn't expect to find that folder. Tucked deep in a subfolder labeled 2022 Q3 Backup Temp Do Not Delete, She found a file directory she didn't recognize. When she clicked into it, her screen flashed a window titled, Brent's Edits. It stopped her mid-sip of instant coffee. The name alone was like a slap. For a moment she just sat there, cursor hovering as if opening it would release a ghost. Then she clicked. Inside, dozens of Word docs and Excel sheets, side-by-side versions of every quarterly report she had submitted over the past year. Her originals were intact. Every footnote, every reference, every sober projection cross-referenced with depot logs and vendor contracts. Right next to them, the versions Brent had reviewed and cleaned up. Except cleaned up in this case meant scrubbed of anything remotely truthful. He had removed entire rows of fuel overages, edited customer churn percentages from 8.7% to 3.2%, added bullish language like record-breaking throughput and unprecedented logistical efficiency. On one spreadsheet, he'd literally changed a minus sign to a plus, flipping a $42,000 loss into a $17,000 gain with all the subtlety of a toddler lying about cookies. Kimberly's mouth went dry. She leaned in. The timestamps on the files showed they were all saved the day before board meetings. Each one followed the same formula, her version, then a doctored copy renamed with a cleaner title, Q2 Final, Approved Numbers, Shareholder Summary. Not one of them matched reality. And then, sitting like a rotting cherry on top, was a PDF labeled Investor Brief Draft. Brent had signed it, the same numbers, the same lies, sent out to stakeholders with her work as the foundation. Her fingers curled into fists on the keyboard. This wasn't spin. This wasn't optimism. This was financial fraud. Systemic, premeditated, falsified reporting used to mislead clients, partners, and possibly federal entities that regulate shipping compliance. She wasn't just let go for being too honest. She was collateral damage in a cover-up. And the evidence? It was sitting right here. On her old, overheating laptop, tucked in a forgotten file Brent probably assumed had died with her employee ID. She sat back, heart hammering. A week ago, she'd cried because her microwave sparked when she tried to make popcorn. She'd felt useless, discarded, broken. Now she stared at her screen like it was the ignition switch on a missile. These people are criminals, she said aloud. The words felt strange but honest, heavy but inevitable. And for the first time in weeks, she didn't feel helpless. She felt dangerous. This wasn't vengeance. Not yet, this was inventory, facts, a roadmap to the truth they'd buried. She opened a new folder and titled it simply, Evidence. Then she copied every file, original and doctored, and backed them up twice. USB, cloud, email to herself. She even printed a few of the worst offenders, just to hold the weight of the lie in her hands. As the printer coughed out page after page of polished corruption, Kimberly felt the fog lift from her brain like smoke rolling off a battlefield. She didn't know exactly what she was going to do next. But for the first time in a long time, she knew why. Kimberly hadn't been to the downtown library in years, not since her niece's failed science fair experiment involving vinegar, baking soda, and a regrettable rug stain. It smelled the same, though. Dusty encyclopedias, disinfectant, and the slow decay of forgotten knowledge. Perfect for plotting corporate ruin. She chose a computer in the far corner beneath a flickering fluorescent bulb, the kind that buzzed like it was broadcasting Morse code to ghosts. She didn't log into any accounts. She used DuckDuckGo. She cleared cookies every 5 clicks. And what she searched for wasn't revenge, it was procedure. How to report financial fraud anonymously. Which agencies oversee interstate logistics compliance. DOT whistleblower hotline. SEC Form TCR reporting instructions. She took notes the old-fashioned way. Legal pad, ballpoint pen, handwriting small and slanted like it was afraid to be seen. By the end of the afternoon, she had a crude flowchart drawn with arrows and circles. Each node marked verify, double-check, or needs evidence. She'd outlined 3 separate reporting pathways: Department of Transportation for falsified logistics data, the SEC for cooked investor reports, and the IRS as a last resort nuclear option. The next day, she took the bus to a Walmart on the edge of town. She wore a hoodie and a surgical mask, not for disguise, because it felt like armor. She paid cash for no-name Android phone and the cheapest off-brand Chromebook they had. The clerk didn't look twice. He was too busy trying to upsell a Fortnite gift card to a 9-year-old behind her. At home, she set the phone up with a prepaid SIM, turned off GPS tracking, and created a new Gmail under a name that sounded like a yoga instructor from Delaware. Paige Melrose 123. The Chromebook got the same treatment. No logins, no syncing. She even disabled the microphone. Next came the real work. She spent the next 6 nights hunched over her folding table, surrounded by sticky notes and USB drives, cross-referencing every altered spreadsheet against her originals. She organized them by quarter, by region, by offense. Fuel fraud, false cost projections, manipulated client retention numbers. She created a master timeline of when each doctored file had been created, when it had been sent to the board, when the company released glowing statements to the press. She stripped every file of metadata, using free tools she downloaded from obscure GitHub repositories, then checked each one twice. She renamed everything with generic labels like Q2 Review Alt and Fuel Invoice Delta. If someone ever found this trove, it would take a full forensic team to connect it back to her, and even then it wouldn't be easy. Her evidence binder, yes, she had a binder, grew thicker by the day. She slid the printouts into plastic sleeves, each one tabbed and color-coded. Red for investor-facing lies, blue for internal manipulation, yellow for vendor discrepancies. It wasn't just organized, it was beautiful. In a twisted way, it was the best project she'd ever worked on. She didn't feel joy. Not yet, just purpose. Cold and clean like a scalpel. Each night, after she powered down her burner devices and tucked her binder under a loose floorboard in her closet, she'd make herself a cup of tea and stare out her window at the gas station across the street. Trucks came and went, headlights cutting across the dark like blades. It reminded her of the depot terminals she used to audit, of the fuel sheets she used to balance, of a time when truth mattered. Now, she was building something else entirely. Not a report. A reckoning. And every page she added to the binder was one more nail in Brent's custom-built, neon-lit coffin. The coffee shop buzzed with startup energy and oat milk arrogance. AirPods in every ear, laptops glowing with half-written pitches and failed novels. Kimberly blended in like wallpaper, hoodie up, glasses low on her nose, or in her Chromebook perched between a caramel macchiato she hadn't touched and a muffin that had gone cold hours ago. She'd chosen this place for its noise. The hum of conversation made her heartbeat seem normal. No one noticed the woman in the back corner typing like her hands were made of wire. The email draft had taken her 3 days. Every word was sharpened like a blade, concise, factual, no flourish, no anger. Just data. Cold, clean, devastating data. To whom it may concern, I am submitting this report as a private citizen, concerned about ongoing financial misconduct within company name. Attached is a summarized document outlining discrepancies in quarterly fuel costs, falsified investor reports, and internal data manipulation spanning from Q3 2021 to Q2 2023. I encourage your office to cross-reference report IDs listed within the attachment with public filings submitted during that time. This tip is submitted anonymously for personal safety. She'd reviewed it over and over. Grammar flawless, tone neutral. The PDF attached was a bullet, a 14-page dossier of tables, report IDs, dates, and discrepancies, all supported by the documents she now had backed up in 3 places. No names, no speculation, just fraud in plain numbers. She reread the email one final time. Her hand hovered over the mousepad. What if I missed something? What if I slipped up and they trace it? What if it's not enough? The panic rose like bile, thick and chemical. Her eyes darted to the exit. Her lungs forgot how to breathe. Then she clicked, send. The button grayed out, the tab closed, just like that. No explosion, no police sirens, no fireworks. Just the hiss of a milk steamer and a guy in a Patagonia vest loudly explaining NFTs to a date who looked like she regretted her existence. Kimberly closed the Chromebook slowly. Her fingers trembled, not with victory, but fear. The kind of fear you feel after jumping off a ledge and realizing there's no going back. She walked out the door into the afternoon sun. It was too bright. Everything felt too normal. People laughed, cars honked. It slurped smoothies next to a barking golden retriever. The world spun on like it hadn't just shifted forever. Her knees felt weak on the sidewalk. She sat on a bus stop bench, the burner laptop zipped tight in her tote. Her palms were sweaty. Her breath was shallow. You did it, she told herself. But another voice whispered, what if they find you? What if Brent had a lawyer crawling through email headers right now? What if some intern flagged the file and traced the IP? What if she'd forgotten one little metadata tag, one breadcrumb? She sat there for 20 minutes, the world passing her by in fragments, shopping bags, barking dogs, some teenager vaping into a crosswalk. The paranoia was almost unbearable. But underneath it, something else stirred. A stillness. A weight being lifted. It wasn't over. It hadn't even started, but she had done it. The bomb was in the mail. By week 3, Kimberly had started checking the mailbox like a paranoid squirrel. Not for letters, those didn't come anymore, unless you counted credit card offers and the occasional sympathy coupon from ARP, but for signs, a man in a suit standing too long on her sidewalk, a black SUV circling the block, a bird sitting on her windowsill a little too long. Every cough from her neighbor sounded like someone tapping a wire. Nothing. Each morning she'd open her laptop, browse headlines, search company name fraud in incognito mode and come up dry. No news, no whispers, just silence stretching long and taut like dental floss over a garbage disposal. She started to doubt herself. Maybe she'd sent it wrong. Maybe it got caught in a spam filter between a prince offering gold and a reverse mortgage miracle. Or maybe worse, it wasn't enough. What if the numbers hadn't screamed loud enough? She avoided looking at her binder. It sat under the floorboard, thick with receipts and betrayal, but even holding it made her heartbeat skip like a scratched record. The adrenaline that had fueled her through planning had curdled into fatigue. The longer nothing happened, the more it felt like she'd hallucinated the whole damn thing. Then came the text. Tara, 2:14 p.m. weirdest thing. A bunch of PPL in suits here asking about old fuel invoices? Nobody knows who they are. All hell is breaking loose. Kimberly froze mid-bite of her off-brand cereal. Her spoon clinked against the chipped ceramic like a starting pistol. She stared at the screen, read it again, then again, old fuel invoices. She put the bowl down gently and stared at the wall for a long time like it owed her an explanation. A bunch of suits, asking questions. Chaos. Her hands started to tremble, but not from fear this time, from something darker, colder, sweet and metallic in the back of her throat. It was starting. She didn't respond to Tara. She didn't need to. Anything she typed would either be too obvious or not enough. Instead, she opened LinkedIn, typed in the company name, checked the executive roster, which she hadn't done in weeks. That's when she saw it. Gary R., former CFO at company name, resigned to pursue new opportunities. Posted 3 hours ago. No farewell post, no endorsements, just gone. Gary had been with the company 10 years. He'd weathered 3 recessions, 2 leadership overhauls, and Brent's attempt to make TikToks in the break room. The man didn't resign without an oxygen mask and a golden parachute. Kimberly leaned back in her chair, her face slack with something like awe. Like watching lightning strike the exact tree she pissed on last year, so it had landed. The tip didn't bounce. It burrowed, deep enough to rattle the bones. She closed the laptop slowly, savoring the moment. Her apartment still smelled like burnt toast. Her rent was still overdue, but for the first time in weeks she smiled. A small, quiet smile. She didn't know what would happen next, but she knew this wasn't over, not by a long shot. The headline hit her like a slap wrapped in silk. Assets of company name frozen by federal regulators amid fraud investigation. It was right there in bold type, just below a banner ad trying to sell her ergonomic socks and a news ticker reminding the world that the Dow was up 3 points. Kimberly clicked the link with trembling fingers, heart thrumming like a hummingbird trapped in a mailbox. The article was straightforward, clinical, even. Federal regulators had launched a formal inquiry into the company's financial filings, citing significant irregularities in quarterly reporting and cost structures related to logistics and fuel procurement. Effective immediately, all assets were frozen. No payouts, no bonuses, no investor activity. Her eyes scanned every word like she was afraid it would vanish if she blinked too hard. Halfway through the second paragraph, it landed. According to sources familiar with the matter, investigation was initiated after an anonymous tip provided regulators with internal documents and edited reports indicating possible fraudulent activity. Her hand flew to her mouth, as if to hold in the sound she wasn't sure she was about to make. But nothing came, no laughter, no gasp, just silence. Then slowly, beautifully, a smile broke across her face. Not wide, not manic, but deep. The kind that starts in your spine and climbs up, vertebra by vertebra until it reaches your teeth. Anonymous tip. She leaned back in her chair like she'd just watched a rocket launch from her own backyard. Not a big, flashy firework, a missile, sleek, silent, precise. The kind that leaves a crater where a lie used to live. She refreshed the article twice. It didn't change, this wasn't a rumor, this was public, confirmed, real. She searched the company's website down for scheduled maintenance. Their social media. Silent, the last post had been a sunny photo of Brent shaking hands with some local Chamber of Commerce school. A hollow caption, proud to build a transparent future. Kimberly almost snorted tea through her nose. The irony was biblical. She spent the next hour surfing finance blogs, Reddit threads, even Twitter, where a handful of logistics nerds were already speculating about what went wrong. Some thought it was an internal leak. Others guessed at vendor lawsuits. Nobody knew the real story. Nobody knew it was a woman in a faded hoodie with a $179 Chromebook and a binder full of truth. She didn't correct them. The beauty of it all, the pure, unfiltered schadenfreude, wasn't just that they were being exposed. It was that no one knew who had done it. She had become a ghost with a scalpel. There would be meetings now, emergency calls, executives scrubbing hard drives and lawyers digging through emails and Brent screaming at assistants to fix it. But you can't plug a leak when the dam's already collapsed. Kimberly stood, stretched, and looked around her apartment. Nothing had changed, and yet everything had. The couch was still lumpy, the ceiling still cracked, her tea was still cold, but she felt taller, lighter. Like she'd dropped a 10-ton weight she'd been carrying so long, she forgot it wasn't part of her spine. There was still more to come, she knew that. But today, this day was hers. Let the fire spread. The building looked smaller now. Kimberly sat in her car, engine off, hands resting on the steering wheel like she was waiting at a red light that never changed. Across the street, the glass facade of company name gleamed under a flat, gray sky, but the parking lot was nearly empty. No delivery trucks, no laughing interns, just a few scattered sedans and a security guard chain-smoking beside the back exit. She hadn't been back here since the day she was fired. The day Brent smiled through his veneers and told her to look at the donut, not the hole. Well, the donut was moldy now, and the hole had teeth. Her phone buzzed in the passenger seat. She glanced at the screen. Tara, she picked up. Kimberly, Tara's voice was low and breathless, like she was hiding behind a potted plant. We're not going to believe what just happened. A pause, they're here. Kimberly didn't have to ask who they were, 2 federal agents, maybe 3. Brent was in the conference room yelling so loud you could hear him through the glass, said something about how it was all standard investor rounding. Then someone handed him a folder, big one, thick. Kimberly said nothing, just watched the entrance. Now he's being escorted out. Like, walked out, he's holding a box. Literal cardboard box, Kim. It's like something out of a movie. Kimberly's eyes locked onto the front doors just as they opened. And there he was. Brent Asher, Mr. Synergy, Mr. Growth Hack the Economy. The visionary in a tailored suit now looked like a college freshman who just failed his finals and got dumped before winter break. No entourage, no PR team, just a box in his arms and a face frozen in a cocktail of rage, confusion, and panic. He wasn't yelling now, he was blinking into the daylight like it hurt. A pair of plainclothes agents flanked him, not touching, just present. Behind them, a woman from HR Kimberly didn't recognize clutched a clipboard and looked like she wanted to disappear into her blouse. "He looks like he's gonna puke," Tara whispered. Kimberly cracked the window and let the breeze in. Brent stood there on the sidewalk, staring around like he expected someone to explain what just happened. No one did. A breeze picked up, blowing his tie sideways like it was trying to flee him. "He's gone," Tara murmured. "Kim, I don't know what you did, but holy hell." Kimberly ended the call without saying a word. She didn't need to. Across the street, Brent looked straight ahead but not at her. He couldn't see her. She was parked in the shade, windows dark. Just another anonymous vehicle on a quiet afternoon, but she saw him. She watched as he shuffled toward his Tesla, fumbling with the keys, the box wobbling in his arms. One file slipped out and skittered across the pavement. He bent to grab it, knees stiff, face red, and for a moment she wondered if he knew, if he felt it. The invisible presence of the woman who saw the whole, who refused to lie, who chose the truth when it hurt and weaponized it when it counted. He didn't look back, neither did she. She turned the key, the Civic coughing awake like an old friend, shifted into drive, pulled away from the curb without so much as a glance in the rearview mirror. Brent's story was over, and Kimberly's, it was just beginning. You're the real MVPs of the office jungle. Thanks for watching. Smash that subscribe button, or the coffee pot might just forget your next brew.